Welcome back to part 2 of making an interactive website functioning. Just to recap on what you should be up to by now. So if you're here watching the second video, you've chosen a story, you've looked at that story and chosen some words that you'd like to make interactive. You have written the text into the HTML section. You've formatted that text by using the heading 1 tag, the P tag, and the BR tag if you needed to. And then you've included some basic input functionality for the user. So far we've looked at 3 different input functions that you can use in HTML. One was just a simple text box, one was a radio button, and the other was a drop-down box. So in this video I'm just going to show you one more thing in HTML, which is how to insert an image, and then we're going to move on to formatting the HTML using CSS. For this image I'm going to choose a picture of Dougie. So I'm just going to go to the internet now and see if I can find a picture that's suitable for here. You're not limited to a JPEG. You could, if you wanted to, get an animated GIF, and the way I insert that into my web page would be to copy the image address, because there's no way to actually download this image and upload it to WebMaker. So I need to copy the image address, come back in here into my HTML, choose a spot that I want it in my code, which is underneath everything else, and the code that you're going to use is image source, and then I'm going to paste that link that I got and just closing the bracket there. When I run this, there's the animated GIF. So if you wanted to resize this, if you thought this was a little bit too small, you can set a parameter like the width to be 10 pixels for instance, and it would resize it. So I'm done with HTML for now. I've got these tags in here and I'll refer to them down here in the CSS. So I'm going to minimize that back to its normal state. And down in CSS is going to tell HTML what to do. So if I put in here, for instance, a H1 and a squiggly bracket, I can then command every time a H1 is used up here to do something. So let's have a look in W3 Schools, because this is the best resource for CSS HTML. So we can control the font family. We can, just like in Word, tell it which font to use. We can control the font style, italic, oblique, the weight to be bold. We can control the font size. We can set it to be a certain size to fill the size of a website. We can control the line height of the font, how it interacts with the next line underneath it. We can control the text color. We can control the text background color. We can control if it's centered, left, right, or justified, the alignment. We can control the text decoration. So we could put an underline or a line through the word. We can transform the text. If it's written in lowercase, for instance, we could make it all uppercase. We can control the text spacing in between each letter or in between each word. We can give the text a shadow, give it a decoration to make it stand out. W3 Schools is a really good resource because you can even go into these little boxes here, try it yourself, and see the code in practice. It's got the demonstration over here, and I could play around with these numbers over here and see what it actually happens over to the right hand side. So it's a really good resource. Play around with it, get familiar with what you can do with CSS. So we'll use some of those tags in a second. The first thing I'm going to show you how to style this website over here is how to use this resource called Google Fonts. So Google Fonts imports fonts from this website itself. So this one talks to Google Fonts, but you need to map it out. So firstly, you need to go through and have a look at which fonts you would like to use on your web page. So if I like this one, for instance, I can say select this style, and it gives me some code that I can use. I want to import it, and if I was doing internal styling in a HTML, I would use this whole snippet of code, but because I'm using CSS by itself, I only need this part. And then I just copy that and paste it above the tag. Don't paste it inside the tag because that's a different snippet of code. We need to use the font family and put that inside H1. If I run that now, Dougie's Christmas will change. Okay, so the way this works is if I wanted that font to also affect the P tag, which is the paragraph tag, I just copy and paste that down into here and run it, and all the font on the page would be the same. However, I'm going to choose a different font for this one. I'm going to go back into Google Fonts, scroll down to another font now, select this style, and updates this import tag over here to have two different fonts in it now. The one I just selected, Shadows into the Light, and Gloria Hallelujah. So what I do with that is I copy and paste that over the top of this. I only need one snippet of code because it's got both fonts. It's telling it to link in with Google Fonts and take both of those fonts. However, I don't want to take both of these snippets and put it inside the paragraph tag because it wouldn't know which one to follow. It's going with the second one because it's telling it to do this first and then this one. So Shadows of the Light I'm going to use for heading 1, and then Gloria Hallelujah. I'm going to use one more tag in a minute in my HTML. I haven't got it in there at the moment, but it's called a span tag, and I'll just choose a font for that while I'm here. As you can see, there is lots of fonts to choose from. I'll repeat this step. I'm copying just inside the style tags here now, overriding the import tag that I have to include all three. And then I need the last snippet of code here, the font family Walter Turncoat, because that's the font that I've chosen for my span tag. And as you can see, there's no changes because I haven't got any span tags, but I'll include those shortly. Make sure you save your work. So my next little decoration that I'm going to use via CSS on the web page here is a background image. So if you went to the internet and Googled background image, there'd be lots to choose from. You are not limited to a picture that needs to fit a certain size because I'm going to show you how to tile it. And there's even lots to choose from in this area. So I'm going to choose this fancy one here. It may not last, but we'll trial it out. Again, the same method as before, using the URL method of including an image. Copy the image address. Back into WebMaker. There is a section in the HTML which is there by default, but I'm going to put it in here now so you can see it. It's called body. And I'll end the body. Then I'm going to format the body. Here I'm going to insert a background image. The code to do this in CSS is going to be background dash image. We need to tell the CSS that we're going to be using a URL. Then I'm going to paste that link in and we'll see what happens. So by default, the background image is tiled across the whole page, and if I was to keep scrolling down if I needed to, that would just continue for the entire background. We can have, just checking over here on my W3 Schools, lots of different background repeats. So if I copy this code over, and we'll see what the original image looks like here. Now this is coming up white because I haven't closed that off. There's the original image, so you can see, and here it is tiled. Last thing I'm going to do is show you some of those tags that we got from W3 Schools. I'm going to use some of these to style my text, because one thing that's really clear at the moment is the text is really hard to read because it doesn't contrast with the background. So I'm going to use this snippet here, which is text color, and I can copy this code straight out of W3 Schools, and we'll put that in H1 and we'll run it. And Dougie's Christmas has gone green. I think it'd be a little bit more effective if it was really contrasting with a white. So you can use names of colors like this, or you can use a hexadecimal code. You can choose a color using many different apps. Google's color picker here is just fine for it. I'm going to choose an orangey, a light orangey like this, and just copy this code to, instead of white, I'm going to paste that in and run it. And now it's that orangey color that I just chose, this one here. Another bit of code that we would like in here is to go into fonts, and I want font size. Let's see what our options are here. Remember, you can copy and paste this code to make your life a little bit easier. I'm going to paste that into here. That's a little bit clearer. Let's up that to 80. That's a bit better. If we go back into here, let's have a look at what else we can do. A background color, that might be effective. I can't see my writing, but if I chose white as the text color. Okay, so there's lots you can do to change the appearance. I'm going to try a background color on my heading now. One more thing I'm looking for here is to try and center this writing, and that would be in alignment, text align center. I want to center both the paragraph and the heading. I really like the look of that shadow effect that I saw before. Now, if I look down here, you can actually name the color.